Hi, this video really is to offer, provide really some further insights and explanations as to why I wrote this note in relation to the ITNJ, the International Tribunal of Natural Justice, arriving in London recently to spearhead a 9-month hearing into the issues of satanic ritual abuse, which is actually just sadistic ritual abuse. Let's call it for what it is. Forget Satan, fictitious entity, criminal god for criminals, absolutely insane. So, we're talking sadistic ritual abuse of children and organised child abuse, which includes also child trafficking. And I know that many people will have read this Facebook note that I published my concerns in as an attack against the ITNJ, when in actual fact I am standing in full support of the ITNJ as an organisation, because my efforts are to cleanse that organisation of the corruption that's obviously infiltrated it. According to the evidence, according to my experience of my own personal dealings with it, and for what they have presented right slap bang in my face, which has deeply offended me as a CSA survivor. And in actual fact, we need to get our heads around the understanding that all abuse of children is sadistic ritual abuse, because it is part and parcel of this culture, so-called, that is presently governing humanity and programming the human mind to such a degree, to such a perverse degree, and amid such imbalance, that it is creating a culture of that does grow a psychosexual disease that preys on women, children, and even men, that basically is like a vampire, cancerous consciousness that will, if left unchecked, eventually even kill the very host that it actually relies on for its own existence. Because that's what insanity is. Insanity doesn't take everything into account. Insanity is ignorant. Insanity is obsessive. Insanity is perversely selfish. Because the truth is, all life is selfish, otherwise it couldn't survive. But there's a level of selfishness that operates within the context of universal law. So like when you look at the birds and the bees, everything there, abundance of food for them, fruits, flowers, and yes, help yourself, birds and bees. You go and gather your fruits and your pollen, and simultaneously while you're doing that, you will actually be pollinating. You'll be doing a job of service to those trees and plants, because you'll be pollinating them so that there'll be even more of those trees and plants in future years. Your trees will be pollinating the flowers for fruits, and the birds will be spreading the seeds around here and there from the fruits that they've eaten. That is the way life works, on a system of abundance of giving, and then in return you get an abundance of the receiving. And in a time of natural disaster on a planet full abundance of life, then you go into that life will survive. It's guaranteed. This system works on the very opposite. It works on a system of thrift and austerity and abundance for the very, very few that impose the thrift and austerity, which all arises directly from slavery and ignorance of universal law. The very law that Jesus upheld, that Jesus came to confirm as the guidance of golden light intelligence. So everything that I've said in this note, and I do make it clear, I'm not aiming this at all the members of the ITNJ panel, and even the people who I have directly called into question here. The door is open for apologies and for okay then, I'm sorry, yes, let's include the child protection directives. Yes, I realise that we've been thinking all wrong. There's forgiveness, but no. You see, egotistical people, it is too much for them. They're too proud to abandon, to say sorry. They're too proud to admit that they was wrong. They're too proud to admit that they're corrupt. And, they'd rather oppress and attack innocent people so that they can continue being wrong and therefore making things go slow. The song of Bob Marley comes to mind. Back out and shut your mouth because you're making things go slow. But, that's what they've both basically told me. Back out and shut your mouth. Okay? Because my gripe with them is that at their launch, not only did they not bother to promote the solution of the EU Child Protection Directives that barely a single EU nation has bothered to implement yet, and especially not Britain, and apparently now never will, because we don't need them, do we? We're out of the EU. And the EU is such an evil place. Anything that comes out of it is fundamentally corrupt. The Child Protection Directives. Well, I'm sorry to inform you, life is not that cut and clear. There's good and bad everywhere. And the same goes for the EU. And these Child Protection Directives were written by people, professional people, experts, who had done in-depth research and study and an analysis into the issue of child abuse and the impacts of it. And these Child Protection Directives that they formulated not only protect children, they also prevent crimes against them. Now, of course, the ITNJ are never going to promote them, are they? Because at the end of the day, if those EU Child Protection Directives were right now fully implemented in, say, America, well, the podesters would have been immediately arrested as soon as those emails were leaked with all the FBI identified paedophile references that are in them. Donald Trump would have gone to court. He would have been thoroughly investigated. Because you see, according to the Child Protection Directives, onus of proof of innocence, which really doesn't mean that you're judged innocent. It means that you stay a suspect until your innocence is proved. If there's been allegations against you, and especially as in Trump's case, sexual abuse and rape of children who are trafficked children who are the victims of organised abuse by the hands of Trump's best friend Jeffrey Epstein, convicted paedophile and child trafficker. And then, we've got all Trump's other paedophile connections, like, for example, George Nader, convicted paedophile, invited into the White House to fraternise with the administrative staff there, and, regularly invited to Trump Towers. So it isn't, then we've got his own self-confession, of which he talks about just boldly barging in to a teenage beauty pageant dressing room where the girls, as he states, were most of them naked because they were changing into the swimsuits or something, and and then giving a detailed description of how gorgeous they all were, and then how many women, professional, credible women, who have come forward and cited him as sexually assaulting them, and his own confession of how one woman, his friend's wife, had to fight him off. So I was concerned when, right at the launch of the ITNJ thing for London, they had Ivanka Trump included in it, and I was thinking, what is going on here? This woman, her dad stands with Zionists, okay, Netanyahu, who actively promotes killing Palestinian children, incarcerating them, stealing their lands off them, housing them in concentration camps, okay, monitoring their every movement through military checkpoints. You know, that is who her husband is best friends with, and also her dad, her POTUS dad. But I was prepared to give her the benefit of the doubt. Alright, she's an individual in her own right. She doesn't necessarily support her husband's views. She doesn't necessarily support her dad's views. Perhaps she really is genuinely concerned about children, so I let it slip by. I thought, yeah, I'm not going to judge her. I will accept her on her own merit. And I trust the ITNJ. And as it explains in this note, I did contact the ITNJ and put forward some evidence and things of my own experiences, and also sent them the EU Child Protection Directives and said, you know, please, I hope you will use public attention on the ITNJ's coverage of this now to promote the EU Child Protection Directives. So when I watched their launch video, I was very disturbed to witness not only were the EU Child Protection Directives not even mentioned, okay, but instead we get a song of praise for Trump and everything that he's doing to stop child trafficking. Apparently in America now, any police station that arrests a group of paedophiles, they're working from direct instructions from Donald Trump. I mean, this is just this is a ridiculous assumption. You know, police in any nation are there to serve the public. And that's what they're paid to do, is to arrest criminals, act on crime reports, do investigations and arrest criminals. So, you know, that isn't any particular behest from the government leader. This is just the general mechanisms of society that every government leader just oversees, in as much as it makes sure that it has a police force in the first place. But oh no, apparently Trump's done amazing things to help traffic children. Really? What? Like seizing immigrant children off their parents at the border and handing them over to sponsors and putting them in, housing them on military bases, and explaining to the American public that actually all of these children will grow up into criminals. And in Trump's direct quote from Trump's in relation to illegal immigrants' children, they are not innocent. Oh, but we're all going to assume that Trump is innocent, even when the EU Child Protection Directives state, no, he's a lawful suspect, because he's got sworn affidavits against him that have been presented to a court of law, and he's never been investigated or stood trial. So he's still a lawful suspect because he has not proven that he is beyond suspicion. He has not proven the suspicions to be unfounded. The two witnesses, the two victim witnesses who put forward those affidavits, handed them into the courts, they later withdrew them after he was made president. In the interim, before it was due to go to court, suddenly he was president of the United States, and these two witnesses are getting death threats. Well, according to the Child Protection Directives, retractions are not enough to close a case. They're not enough, and especially not from witnesses who are suddenly facing the President of the United States and suffering death threats from Trump supporters who have openly threatened and actually have killed anybody who refuses to love Trump's hate. You know, people were killed and maimed. A person was killed and other people maimed in Charlottesville by people who were saying, no, we are not going to, we do not love Trump's hate. We do not want a statue representing Trump's hate in our town, celebrating a man who was prepared to kill American citizens, kill American children for the sake of his right to own a slave. Basically, for his right to be un-Christian. Because, you know, Jesus is not somebody who supports slavery. And you know what I'm exposing here as well is also to wake people up to understand the reality of controlled opposition, and do not get lulled along into these narratives. That this control, because this is what has happened here, because it's out. Renard Bernard gave his statements how many years ago, and it's all hit YouTube now and the whole world's aware of it. We've listened to John Wedger before. We've heard all the people, haven't we? We know that the crimes are happening. So why do we suddenly need the ITNJ? Of course my suspicions are aroused when suddenly they're promoting Donald Trump and failing to promote the solution. That every British citizen, you know, if the ITNJ sat there and said, British people, what you need to do is write to your MP and demand immediate implementation of the EU Child Protection Directives. That's something people can do, isn't it? But apparently they're not going to do that because, you know, they state that the person that the ITNJ panel honours, Donald Trump, well, they state him as a lawful suspect. So I realise they are not going to promote the EU Child Protection Directives. So what are they there for then, if they're not there to promote a solution? Because, you know, we don't need to go to the ITNJ to listen to people like John Wedger and Mr. Bernard. We don't need the ITNJ, do we? Because that information is already there. So what we've got is the ITNJ coming to take control of that information. Not an official body, not a government body, not the police, okay? Not anybody who's actually going to do anything, because that's one of the first things the ITNJ panel state, is that they have no powers to actually do anything about all of this. They're just raising awareness. Well, my suspicions are that no, not only are they just raising awareness, they are raising awareness for the reason that they know that the John Wedgers and Mr. Bernards of this world have got such public attention, and they want to get their face in on the limelight too, and, you know, get the donations flowing in. Because they're doing such wonderful work, they're exposing it all, they're bringing it all to the public platform. It's a distraction. And at the end of it, 9 months of horror, nothing done, and no solution. Oh, perhaps the solution is that we'll all invest, you know, donate heavily to Sasha Stone's New Earth project. Well, I don't know how we're ever going to get a new Earth unless we can give our children the Child Protection Directives and stop the spread of this psychosexual disease that is literally destroying our very humanity by directly attacking our children. And yes, I am offended. I am deeply offended by the fact that when I wrote to Sasha Stone and I expressed my concerns to him, I got accused of, you know, bringing the ITNJ into disrepute and standing in dishonour, because they're all really honourable members of society. Oh really? So I'm not an honourable member of society then, who survived 17 years child sexual abuse, who has actually spent my whole life standing up for children's rights, animal rights, earth rights, who has written to every single charity, how many MPs and lords and baronesses in Britain and other people and charities around the world, other organisations, asking for support in promoting the EU Child Protection Directives. Not one British MP I've contacted who claims to speak out on behalf of the issue is even interested in them. No mention of them whatsoever. Why? Why is that? Why is it? Why are we having this SRA-CSA inquiry, spending millions and taking how many years, when we've already got the EU Child Protection Directives? They've already identified the problem, they have already studied it. They have developed these protocols in order to combat and prevent crimes against children. So what does Britain need the expense of an SRA-CSA for? But at least, at the very least, the SRA-CSA people are passing information on any criminal information and concerns immediate onto the police and Operation Hydrant to be investigated. What is the ITNJ going to do? Are they passing it on to the police? Are they going to compile a police report? So, you know, to me, call it for what it is. Call a spade a spade. It is a circus. Oh, and apparently I'm so offensive and I'm full of hate and I stand in dishonour for calling a spade a spade. A spade that has the absolute audacity and cheek to call me dishonourable. You know, I'm not promoting my own little pet personal organisation and charity or company or whatever and asking for donations and having people swooning around me. Am I? Who am I promoting? Oh, Jesus, and universal golden light intelligence and universal law of abundance and compassion. Not for me personally, but for everybody and all the life on our planet. And I stand in dishonour. You know, and I absolutely love this picture that I found on Google Images to support this, because it does to me, you know, that is the abomination of it. It really is an abomination for me, and it just fills me with disgust to witness the victim survivors who really have been duped into giving testimony and giving this ITNJ thing the credibility, okay, that it craves in order to get public attention onto itself and in order to attract public funds into its own coffers. And, you know, I'm not dissing those people that have took part in it, you know, to give their evidence, because they do deserve to be heard on whatever platform, and they will give their story, and they have every right to do that. Just as I've said before, you know, you stick some seeds on a table, the birds will come to eat. And it is exactly the same here. They've given a platform for these people to tell their stories in the hope that people are going to do something. And they do get bedazzled by the pomp and splendour of it all that they dress themselves up with. And everybody suddenly takes it all really seriously. Oh, suddenly people are getting really angry now. They want to kill every paedophile now. You know, is that why? Is that what it's about then? Because that's it, isn't it? If people's attention is not guided in the right way, then obviously hearing all these dreadful stories, well, it's just going to drive people crazy, isn't it? They are going to get really angry. They're going to start hating. They're going to want to commit violent acts against people, aren't they? These paedophiles. No, what we need is compassion and love for the children. And the children who have suffered abuse, and also the children who haven't suffered abuse, in order to create a society where they're not going to be, that, you know, any chance of them suffering abuse is very much diminished, because we are a society that fully implements and upholds EU child protection directives. That gives every child reporting crimes to the police an independent legal guardian who will make sure that police investigate that children's crime reports, and that they do not close a case on strength of retractions that very likely have been coerced. Or even possibly, because you see, the EU Child Protection Directives operate on the principle of, if there's smoke, then you better go and make thoroughly sure that there's no fire. Because, like I say, we are talking about a psychosexual disease in a world that is rooted in misogyny and legally defines children as minor human beings, so obviously crimes against them are a minor concern. So, you know, what am I asking people to do? Am I asking people to give money to me, or to worship me, or to, oh, isn't she wonderful? You know, sometimes people ask me what I do. Well, I'm a full-time carer and I do this voluntary work on behalf of child rights. Oh, what does that involve? I tell them a few things. The crime reports will get together, the organisations are contact. Oh, that's wonderful. Oh, you're so wonderful. And you know, I've got no time for it. No, I'm not wonderful. That isn't why I do it. I don't want to be told I'm wonderful. What I want to hear is, oh my gosh, that is really terrible. Give me some details about that. I think I'd like to. I'm going to get in touch with my MP about that. What's your Facebook? Let me give you some support. This is really serious. I'm going to tell all my friends about this. No. Instead, no. Oh, aren't I wonderful? Oh, yes. I'll just float around on my ego. How wonderful I am. For being a human being. And so, people have taken this that I've written as hatred against the ITNJ, apparently. You know, oh, there's no room for anger. Really, there's no room for anger. So this, what I'm showing now, is anger, is it? It isn't righteous passion. The kind of righteous passion that Jesus displayed when he whipped the usurers out of the temple, and for the very reason that they steal the very bread from the children's mouths. It really is time for people to wake up, because you know this ITNJ thing, like I say, it is a distraction. I will point out the elephant in the room that they're ignoring, the solution of the child protection directives. And if they can't promote them, but instead promote people like Trump, the Trumps, who, like I say, according to Sasha Stone, you know, Trump's innocent until he's proven guilty. This is a guy who's heading this thing, you know, heading the ITNJ, representative spokesperson for the ITNJ, who is apparently looking into crimes, ritual crimes and trafficking of children. Noticeably in London, that's been cited by the United Nations Child Protection Committee as the child sex abuse capital of the world. You know, and he hasn't even read the EU Child Protection Directives. Not even looked for a solution. Come on, let's just get them all in. You know, we'll get this publicity, and we'll get out there in London. We'll have our thing. Millions and millions of the global public eyes will be on it. All the Trump supporters, get them in. Make sure you give a big up to Trump. The absolute hypocrisy of it all. How dare they? How dare they? Even without the fact that, according to the Child Protection Directives, he is a lawfully suspected paedophile. Okay? Even without all that, he's standing as best friend of a man who endorses killing children on grounds that the Palestinian. He actually states that the children of illegal immigrants are not innocent. But he is. We'll just assume his innocence, will we? And at the same time, we will accept his opinion and assume that little children are guilty of a crime before they've even committed it. Because apparently it's in their blood. No, this is Nazi philosophy, and it can fuck off. And that's why I'm so angry and annoyed and upset, because I do care about the children, and I do care about people dressing up in sheepskin, because I smell the wolf stench. You will never get past me. Not one of you. You might deceive the masses with your fluffy, woolly sheepskins, whiter than white, purer than pure. But I smell your wolf stench. And you will not get near the children. And I am sick to death of witnessing everything that comes out to publicise this, to raise awareness of it immediately, is always controlled by the very consciousness that it's claiming to be exposing and standing against. Well, I don't stand against nobody and nothing, but I do stand up for children's rights. And in doing so, yes, the people who don't will find me offensive and abusive. The people who are clinging to, you know, the fake news, the rhetoric, the mainstream and even alternative media rhetoric, because that's what this is. It's an alternative media extravaganza, isn't it? That the mainstream media, oh yes, we don't touch that because it's all fake news. Division, divide and rule, they're always at it. Oh, but you know, the mainstream news is fine. It's fine. That, you know, when they're singing praises to abusers. Oh, but when they're not singing praise to abusers, then the fake news. Because the people who are operating covertly, they do pose the greater threat. Ultimately they do, because they do get very, very, very close and right up close and personal to actually people who do have a lot of power, in the sense that they've got a lot of public attention and a lot of public credibility, and that is what they're seeking to vampire off, you see. And that's what my suspicion is here, and I'm sharing it publicly. If you can't face it, prove to me that you're not. Prove to me by promoting the EU Child Protection Directives and advising people directly to go and write to their MP and demand them immediately, because our children need them as quickly as apparently Theresa May needed to expel 23 Russian diplomats in order to protect the people of Britain. Well, we need them that quick to protect the children of our nation and actually the world. So do that. Do it every day for the 9 months that you're holding these hearings. That you want to peer over the shoulder of Renard Bernard and get all public attention, not just onto him, but onto you as well. Onto yourselves. For what? For what? What are you actually giving in return? What are you giving? Apart from your faces as apparently credible, because you're, you know, you're so credible, are you? That, you know, ordinary people, oh, we can't actually present, we can't present the issues, we've got no credibility. No, and I do plead with the, you know, with the people who are participating, the brave, courageous people who have given their testimonies, to the people, the genuine people on that ITNJ panel, because this isn't against all of them. I understand the mechanisms of this world and how easily led people are and how easily deceived and manipulated and duped. Okay, but I am appealing to you all now. Please wake up, listen to what I'm saying, and test it out for yourself. Test it out for yourself, because I was actually surprised. Because I tell you now, and you see, this is why I'd never be invited onto any such panel as the ITNJ panel. Okay, I would not be invited, because the minute that American so-called judge or whatever he was on the ITNJ, he was wearing a black gown, he looked very official, started singing praises to Trump, that would have been it. I would have stood up and I said, here and now, I am leaving this panel, I want nothing more to do with this organisation. You have just used this platform now to express support and sing praises to a man who supports murdering Palestinian children and incarcerating them and stealing off them. Okay, so that's it. And who has called immigrant children, illegal immigrants' children, guilty. Actually, they're all guilty. So sorry, and he is a lawfully suspected paedophile. Sorry, that's it. I'm gone. So carry on with what you're doing, everybody. This is a crock of shite. That would have been me. I wouldn't have sat there. I wouldn't have tolerated it. But, you know, people do. Oh, well, you know, we'll just let that pass. We'll make the little compromise. Yeah, we'll let that pass, you know. yeah, we don't all support Donald Trump, but, you know, let him say that. He's got a right. No, he hasn't got a right to say that. Nobody's got a right to say that. And as I explained here, you know, how would the people of Britain feel if they just started singing the praises to Jimmy Savile? And I present the evidence in here to support my suspicion now, my lawful suspicion. And, you know, I refuse to accept the judgment that I stand in dishonour for asking questions. Asking questions of an organisation that is basically seeking to represent me as a CSA survivor who suffers from PTSD. Who's telling me there's no room for my anger. Me who wasn't allowed to be angry as a child. Oh no, you weren't allowed to be angry. Unless you wanted to get even more battered. And now I'm being told, you know, that my passion, my righteous passion, there's no room for it. It's anger. No, anger is what the Trump supporters feel, isn't it? Towards the Muslims. And the gays. This world is so messed up, and you know, it is going to take, you're going to have to step down from your egos. All you people who think that you're doing so good, actually a lot of you people are doing so much wrong. Because this, like I say, I'm showing it for what it is. It is a circus. If they've got no power, they're not going to do anything, and actually all they're doing is promoting themselves, basking in the limelight, that people like John Wedger and Mr. Bernard have actually earned by their life experience, and they have a right. But what right does this have? Because, you know, if they really did support natural justice, the EU Child Protection Directives amount to natural justice for our children, and anybody who dares deny them and refuse them, well, you know, don't call yourself a human being, and don't tell me that you represent an international tribunal for natural justice. So I've written this out of hurt, concern, pain, knowing the issue, having confronted it absolutely full on, had it been right in its face, it's been right in my face. I've been attacked and prosecuted, and just for so long I've been ignored, time and time again, pointing out risks and people ignoring me, and then the risks are realised. And you know, who likes to say, oh, I told you so, when it involves children being damaged permanently? Do you think that feeds my ego to, oh, see, I told you I was right, wasn't I? No! Why the fuck didn't you listen to me?